What's up guys, hope you're having a good day. In this video we're going to be looking at our profit and losses from May. We're going to be going over all of our performance, reviewing our performance, looking at what we did well, what we didn't do so well, taking a deep dive into our losses and seeing if there's anything we can learn to keep this winning run going that we've been on in 2021. 2021 has been a great year for us so far, and with a busy summer schedule coming up, hopefully we can keep this going. You know, International Fight Week, Poirier versus McGregor coming up in July. We've had a great start to this year. We're now in the middle period of this year, and let's keep this winning run going. So we'll kick things off by taking a look at the live betting results for the month of May. So if we go to the results page, obviously the results page is really broken right now and it needs to be rebuilt. At the beginning of this year, I restructured the way that I presented content for you guys on the site, where we switched from the old betting tips article format of sharing bets to the brand new database format, which is much better for me because it enables me to get bets out to you guys much faster before the odds have a chance to move. But because my priority was restructuring those areas of the site where you access bets, I haven't had time to rebuild the results page to align itself with the new way that content is displayed on the website. I will be rebuilding this very soon. It is a top priority for me, but it hasn't been a massive priority because obviously our betting results are displayed in other areas of the website. So if you guys want to see them, you can. You know what I mean? Pay your members at the end of the day. If you want to see our results, you know where to find them. I just haven't had time to rebuild this public results page yet, just because time is my enemy. There is always so much to do with how many MMA events we've got to get through all the time that, you know, I can only do my best. There's just not enough hours in the day. But the live betting results are still posted here, so let's scroll down and take a look at them. So we went 4-1 on events in May. We made around 2 units of profit on the Prohaska versus Reyes card, around 2.5 units of profit on the Rodriguez versus Waterson card, around 5 units of profit on the Chandler versus Oliveira card, and virtually broke even on the Font versus Garbrandt card last week, going 3-3 on live bets. Now obviously I don't want to share with you guys our actual live bets. I'm not going to say what our live bets were, because if the betting sites, if the bookies knew what bets we had placed and at roughly what odds we placed them, they may be able to identify some of the people in our live betting group and may be able to, you know, work out who you know, whose accounts have where and shut people down. So I'm never going to share the specific live bets we had, but obviously it was a very, very good month. May, I think we made about 10 units of profit. We can see this beautiful profitability chart here, nothing but non-stop profits. And yeah, so we're up to 498.99. So yeah, we made about 10 units of profit in May. Really, really good month for live betting. It's kind of funny that 10 units is a huge month for us. You know, 10 units of profit is a very big month, but it looks so insignificant in the bigger picture because of how good our performance in live betting is. And live betting is just an absolute money train. You know, at the end of the day, this is our cash cow. It's our bread and butter. It's where we make our biggest profits. And I'm very, very confident that we're going to have an absolutely massive summer. There's no reason why we can't keep this winning run going throughout the rest of 2021 and continue to have a great year. If you do want to join us for live betting this week, there are a couple of spaces available. There have been a couple of spaces available over the last few weeks. For whatever reason, there aren't usually spaces, but there have been over the last couple of weeks. So if you'd like to join us for live betting this weekend, just go to the live betting tips page, and you can either buy a single event pass, which will cost you $50, or you can pay for a live betting membership, which will cost you $151 a month. It might seem like a lot, but it is not a lot when you take into consideration, you know, the kind of profits that we can make in live betting. So if you are interested in live betting, if you're curious as to what it's about, I would just say try it out for a week. You will not be disappointed. You will absolutely love it. And of course, you know, taking advantage of profits and gains like this, you're getting a great deal. You're getting a really, really good deal. You'll enjoy it. Okay, so that was live betting. So live betting for May, live betting for May went very, very well. 10 units of profit, did fantastic. Let's take a look at prop bets. Oh, that's not a good sign. Wait a minute. My website's dead. There we go. Bringing it back to life. There we go. Okay, so let's take a look at prop bets. So prop bets probably the least kind of serious bet that I share with you guys, to the point where prop bets are actually the only bet on the entire site where I've got a disclaimer. I'm not personally a big fan of prop bets, but I know you guys love them. But anyway, we did have a profitable month on prop bets. We made around 3.5 units of profit on prop bets. I'm not going to go through all the props and look at them one by one, because there's fucking loads of them, right? We have like 8 props per event, so 8, 16, 24. We'd have to go through like over 30 bets if we wanted to cover our performance from prop bets for May. But we did make 3.5 units of profit. Very, very nice. And when people ask me, you know, why I'm not a fan of props, my answer is quite simple. So if we take a look at, say, live betting, for example, let's bring up the live betting chart. Or okay, where are we? Live betting chart. Let's bring up the loose bets chart as well. Let's bring up the over under bets also. Okay, so if you look at the prop bets chart, it's a roller coaster. Lots of variance, lots of violent swings, big ups, big downs, big ups, big downs, big ups, big downs. Lots and lots of volatility. And when you have volatility, if you've studied compound interest, you know, if you've, you know, studied very, very successful investors like Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio, you know, one of the ways in which they make a lot of money is by using compound interest to just get that snowball effect where their money just continues to grow. One of the biggest threats to compound interest is losses. This is why ROI isn't actually a very good metric for how much money you can make in betting. Win rate is a much better metric than ROI, because if you can maintain a high win rate, your money can snowball and grow very, very quickly with compound interest. And so the first rule of making money is don't lose money, because when you take losses, it slows down compounded growth. If you look at our performance on, say, live betting, you know, let's take a look at the chart, the actual database, right? The chart shows nice, steady, consistent gains, but the database shows it in an even clearer way, where our win rate is very, very high. Almost every event we make a profit. If you look at that, there's 10 events there. We made a profit on 6 out of the 10 events, and 2 of those 10 were virtually break even. So realistically, we only made a loss on 8 of the last 10 events. We go further back than that. Here, we only made a loss on 1 of the 10. You know, just one losing event in 10. Here, 2 losing events in 10. You know, here, 3 losing events in 10, but again, this one virtually break even. And we can keep going. This one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losing events in 10. Not so good there. 5 losing events in 10. And then here, 1, 2 losing events in 10. And then one more. We've got only 1 losing event in 10. Right? You know, going 9-1 on winning events. Absolutely massive. So the point I'm trying to make is, with something like live betting, because our win rate is so high, I know a lot, you know, some of you guys in the live betting group track it. I think we hit over 75% of our live bets. We're constantly snowballing that money and using compound interest to grow our account balances. Would you want to invest in something that looks like this, or would you want to invest in something that looks like this? My issue with prop bets is it only comes with variance. They only come with swings, and I don't want swings. I want nice, steady, consistent growth. It's exactly the same with loose bets. Nice, steady, consistent growth. It's exactly what you want. You know, if we look at the over/under bets, nice, steady, consistent growth. What would you rather invest in? A chart that looks like this? You know, look at the profit and loss on these over-unders. Would you like to invest in this, or would you like to invest in this? So that's the only reason why I don't like props. But we did make 3.5 units of profit last week. Beautiful work. Okay, sorry, 3.5 units of profit last month. All right. We've looked at live betting. We've looked at props. Let's take a look at the loose bets. Well, we've got loose bets up. Let's take a look at them. So, loose bets. Here we go. Alright, so loose bets for the month of June, letting the team down. We virtually break even, just under a unit of profit. So virtually break even. So this is the first kind of bet that we kind of can take a deep dive into. So let's take a look at our loose bets for the month of June. and read a little, read this, guys, just while I'm finding a link for us here. Just if you don't know what our loose bets are, read that little blurb and it will explain to you. I'm just going to try and find out what the first event in June was. Sorry, the first event in May was, so that we know. I keep saying June, I mean May. So that we can see where we need to go from. Let's take a look. So May, first event in May was Reyes versus Prohaska. Okay, let's go. So yeah, we made just under a unit of profit. So not a great month for these loose bets, but still trending up nicely. Still nice little run we've been on in 2021. And on the whole, May wasn't a great month for pre-fight betting. There weren't that many bets that I absolutely loved. I think what's different is there looks to be a lot of strong betting opportunities coming up in May. Coming up in June. I keep mixing my months up. There seem to be a lot of good betting opportunities coming up in June. We've got tons of bets coming up on the next event. So I'm really, really optimistic about those. So the first bet that we had, we took a 1 unit gamble on KB Bula. And this was one of those fights where you're either going to look like a genius or an idiot. In hindsight, you look at this bet and, Bula did absolutely terribly. Looked very, very low level, got absolutely dominated by Michaelides. But, in the pre-fight research, we'd watched footage on Michaelides and we'd seen situations, in recent history where he was so gassed out after one round in some of his past fights that he could barely even throw a punch. Couldn't keep his hands up, couldn't throw a punch, couldn't defend himself, just looked extremely bad. And so that's not the version of Michaelides we got. We got a completely different version. He was very aggressive, fought at a decent pace, put a good pace on Bula for 3 rounds. So we took a 1 unit gamble on Bula at big underdog odds on the premise that, if Michaelides shows up like he has done in the past, gas is bad after 1 round, Bula's probably going to be able to chip away at him, win the second and third round, and cash a nice underdog bet for us. Didn't go down like that. Bula got dominated, but it's cage fighting, right? Anything can happen. We're not betting on robots, and Michaelides' gas tank looked a lot better than it had in the past. Next bet, we took a 1 unit gamble on Dominic Reyes to beat Jiří Prohaska, and that was obviously another loss as well. Again, just one of those bets where we didn't really get the version of Prohaska that we'd seen in the past. He showed up, looked a lot better than usual. Very, very early on, it was clear that he was moving a lot better and had much better ability to read Dominic Reyes and look much better defensively than he has in his past fights. In his past fights, he'd kind of fight with his hands down low. Look really, really sloppy. Very bad boxing defense. He would be there to be hit. But against Dominic Reyes, he moved fantastically well. He looked very, very sharp. Did a great job of controlling distance. Much better head movement than we'd seen from him in the past. And Jiří looked absolutely outstanding. I do still think there are issues with Jiří. I'm not completely sold on him, but he's a lot better than I thought he was. And had I known he was going to show up and perform like that, there's no way that I would have bet on Reyes. Having said that, we did take Reyes as the underdog. He did knock Jiří down. Jiří said in an interview post-fight that he was briefly knocked out for a couple seconds. I think Reyes woke him back up with ground and pound. I think that if the version of Jiří that we'd seen against King Mo and Volkan Oezdemir showed up, I think Reyes would have done pretty well. But that version of Jiří we saw against Reyes was an absolute nightmare. I think he's going to give a lot of guys in the division big, big, big trouble. So I'm excited to see, Jiří in his next fight. And what I really want to see from Jiří is the version of Jiří we got against Reyes the true version of Jiří that exists, today? Or is Jiří a little bit inconsistent? Because he's never looked anything like that before. So I'm very, very interested to see if Jiří is consistent and can keep up that level of performance we saw from him against Reyes, or if he is a little bit inconsistent and goes back to looking a little bit shit and a little bit reckless and quite bad defensively, like we saw from him in in his fight against Oezdemir and King Mo. But anyway, on to the next one. So we went for a 2 unit bet on Jeff Neal at Neil Magny. Jeff Neal to beat Neil Magny. Got off to a really rough start, right? It's quite funny. We ended up making just under a unit of profit, but a very, very rough start to this month, kicking the month off with 3 losses. So we went with a 2-unit bet on Jeff Neal to beat Neil Magny. He lost. Again, I do feel like, and the reason why I talk like this is because we obviously do a lot of research on every fight, right? I mean, we do our homework. There's one thing you can say, there's one thing you can, there's one thing you can say about us, right? One thing you can say about us. We always do our homework. We do always get our money in strong positions. Doesn't mean we always win, but 9 times out of 10, we're on the right side. And with these bets, these losses so far, I do think we've been a little bit unlucky with them. Like I say, Prohaska showed up looking way better than usual. Michaelides didn't gas, like we've seen him do in the past. And we got a little bit unlucky with Jeff Neal as well. If Jeff Neal would have come out and fought like he did against Belal Muhammad or Stephen Thompson, I think he would have beaten Neil Magny very, very easily. But Neil's volume fell off a cliff in the 2nd and 3rd round, and of course after that fight it turned out that he'd been dealing with some pretty significant health injuries in the run up to that fight. So before the Stephen Thompson fight, we knew that he almost died due to an issue with sepsis, which he talks about here, but then he actually talks about this still being an issue for him after he looked good against Stephen Thompson. Now, I know he got dominated by Thompson, but he still fought at a decent pace for 25 minutes, and Thompson's obviously a hell of a lot better than Neil Magny. But after he kind of got through that Stephen Thompson fight, I thought, you know what, he looked good, he fought at a decent pace for 25 minutes, he did get outclassed, but at least he was able to perform at a decent level against a world-class opponent for a long period of time. He's obviously put those health issues to bed. Quite clear that's not the case though, and he says that he almost pulled out of the fight because for 3 days leading up to the fight, 3 days the week before the fight, he had vomiting and diarrhea, and as a result, had 208 pounds to cut 1 week before weigh-in. So he cut 37 pounds during fight week, and obviously that had a big impact on his conditioning and his ability to fight at a good pace against Magny. So again, a little bit unlucky. Certainly wouldn't have been betting Jeff Neal as a big favourite had I known about that issue. His output was a hell of a lot lower in rounds 2 and 3 if you go back and watch his fight against Belal Muhammad. That's why they call it gambling, alright boys. We're not betting on robots here. It is what it is. And now finally we get to some winners, because that was Struggle City. So Gregor Gillespie, we bet on Gregor Gillespie because of his persistent, non-stop, action-packed, big drama show chain wrestling. We felt that he would be able to put a pace on Ferreira that Ferreira wouldn't be able to keep up with, and that's exactly what happened. Both guys fought at an insane pace in round 1, and in round 2, Ferreira couldn't keep up with that pace. Gillespie could. He pushed through, and he came through for us in a big way, cashing a cheeky little winner there. The next bet that we had was Carlston Harris to beat Christian Aguilera. Nice easy winner for us here. Was a little bit surprising. We bet Carlston Harris because Christian Aguilera's takedown defense is very bad and he's very, very low level on the ground. But against Harris, his takedown defense actually looked pretty good, and early on Harris struggled to get the fight to the ground. So after a rough start to the month where Neal had underperformed, Prohaska looked a lot better than we expected. Michaelides didn't gas like we'd seen him do in the past. I was like, oh great, here we go again. Harris's takedown defense and ground game has looked Aguilera's takedown defense and ground game looked terrible in the past. Here we go, another situation where a fighter is going to show up and perform nothing like they have in the past. But thankfully, Harris also showed some improvements and hurt Aguilera. Very, very bad standing to knock Aguilera down, finish the fight off on the ground with a submission to cash that winner for us. Very nice. Then we had Priscilla Cachoeira, and when we were watching the Cachoeira fight, it was one of those fights where I thought it's just going to be one of those months. I never wanted to sound like I'm making excuses, but you guys have got to understand, when I spend 1 to 2 hours researching every single one of these fights that I'm talking about, I know it inside out, back to front, up to down, left and right, any direction, any way you want to challenge me on any one of these fights, I can discuss any one of these fights. I can debate anyone in the world about any one of these fights and defend any one of these bets for hours if you need me to, because I put the work in. I'm very, very confident in what I've seen, and I'm very, very confident in what I'm talking about. You're not able to produce profitability charts like you see from us in live betting and the other kind of bets we have in the site unless you know what you're doing. So when I tell you Prohaska looked a lot better than he ever has done in the past, I fucking mean it with every single strain of DNA in my body. When I say to you Bula was a good bet based on the fact that Michaelides was so gassed he couldn't even hold his hands up after 6 or 7 minutes in some of his past fights, I fucking mean it. And I mean it when I say, when I watched the fight against Cachoeira and Mazzani, I was thinking to myself, this is going to be one of those months where we're absolutely cursed. Because in Cachoeira's past fights against Molly McCann, and against so Molly McCann, we've seen her against Luana Carolina as well. When girls shoot in on Cachoeira's hips, she's very, very good at showing them strong hips and clearing her legs, which makes it very, very difficult for them to take her down unless they use chain wrestling, which Mazzani doesn't do. Mazzani isn't a chain wrestler, and people would come out and say, oh well, Mazzani's a grappler, so she's a much better wrestler than Molly McCann. Well, no, you're wrong, because Mazzani is very stiff, very rigid, and her takedown entries come above hip height. Molly McCann has got beautiful timing on her reactive double leg takedowns where she can shoot in nice and deep on her opponent's hips. If you can do good stuff in someone like Molly McCann's double leg that's very, very well timed, you're likely to do extremely well against someone like Mazzani, whose takedown entries are very stiff. But for whatever reason, Cachoeira's takedown offense completely went out the window in this fight early on, and instead of her doing what we've seen her do in the past, where she shows her opponent strong hips and clears her leg when they shoot in on her, instead she was just getting her legs tangled up, her feet square together, and wasn't sensing the risk when Mazzani was trying to hit inside and outside trips by tying her legs up. So very, very frustrating early half to this fight. And after our losses, already in the month where we'd got a little bit unlucky, I was like, oh, here we go again. Cachoeira is going to significantly underperform compared to what we've seen she's capable of in the past. Thankfully, one of the reasons why we bet on Cachoeira was because Mazzani does tend to fade very hard in fights, and we knew that because Cachoeira is very aggressive, there's a good chance she would have been able to have worn her down with pressure. That's exactly what happened, and in the second half of the fight, Cachoeira ended up coming through for us and cashing a big underdog winner. To get the month back on track, really, we needed that win, because that win on Cachoeira put us back to roughly break even on the month. Then we bet on Kevin Aguilar versus Tucker Lutz, and this was another one of those fights where, again, just got totally burned by a fighter showing up looking absolutely nothing like they had in the past. Kevin Aguilar's not great, very one-dimensional style of fighting, very much just a boxing guy, right? Doesn't bring a lot else to the table. But when you go and look at Tucker Lutz's performance on the Ultimate Fighter, Tucker Lutz's performance on the Contender Series, he looked very flat, very basic, very average, super average striking, not particularly strong grappling, and at underdog odds, with it being Lutz's UFC debut, I felt Aguilar was worth a cheeky little bet. Lutz showed up and looked 100 times better than he did on the Contender Series, and it's just another one of those losses that you've got to take on the chin and say, you just couldn't have known Lutz would have performed like that based on how he'd looked in the past. So can't do a lot about that. And this was one of those months where, you look at our profitability chart, we have these really nice, huge winning months where everything goes in our favour. And then you get scrappy type months where, you have a lot of things happen which couldn't have been predicted based on the pre-fight research, based on past performances. If Lutz or Prohaska would have shown up, looking like they did in the past, and we won our bets on Aguilar and Reyes, or if, Neil hadn't been hospitalised and he shows up and performs to his full potential, if just one or two of these bets would have gone our way, you would have ended up with a solid profit this month. But as it happens, we just ran into a lot of situations where fighters didn't perform in a way that was consistent to how they'd looked in the past. I'm not saying that's actually another example here. I don't think that's another example here. So obviously then we took a 1 unit bet on Ronaldo Jacare Souda to beat Andre Munoz. And there was a lot of uncertainty with this bet because we didn't know what version of Jacare we were going to get. He looked very good against Jack Hermansen, pretty good against Jan Blachowicz, and then obviously got himself knocked out a minute and a half into the fight against Kevin Holland. So when I look at this bet, I know a lot of people didn't like this bet, but I think the people that didn't like this bet haven't assessed the risk to reward ratio correctly on this matchup. Let me explain. So Jacare was even money. You've got to consider the risk to reward ratio that you're getting on a bet on Jacare on this card. Because the information we had to work with, if you look at Jacare's last 3 fights, he performed extremely well against Jack Hermansen. He looked pretty good against Jan Blachowicz, which is now a pretty... If you look at what Jan Blachowicz has gone on to achieve since fighting Jacare, going to a split decision with Blachowicz speaks volumes for me in terms of what Jacare could have been capable of in this matchup. And then he got knocked out early on by Kevin Holland because he didn't respect his ground game. But people were talking about Jacare as being done and finished and, you know, washed up and everything going into this Andre Munoz fight. And for me, that's just a very big assumption to make. Because if you look at his last 3 fights, looked great against Hermansen. Then he lost a split decision against Jan Blachowicz, who's gone on to become light heavyweight champion, beat Israel Adesanya, beat Dominic Reyes, and then he got knocked out very, very quickly against Holland. But against Holland, didn't really show us any signs of decline. So it's making a big assumption to say that Jacare is shot, in my opinion. And then you look at Andre Munoz, and he's just a very, very low-level guy. You go back, watch his fight against Antonio Araujo, and all he does is pull guard for the entire fight and look very, very weak off his back. You know, very weak in grappling positions, a very low-level grappler. And so, when you can get Jacare at even money odds against a guy who is extremely low-level on the ground based on his fight against Antonio Araujo, you look at it and you go, well, it wasn't that long ago that Jacare performed extremely well against a top middleweight in Hermansen. Wasn't that long ago that he went to a split decision against the light heavyweight champion, who Israel Adesanya just got beat by one. You know, Adesanya, probably one of the greatest middleweights of all time. Blachowicz just beat that dude. And so what evidence do we have that Jacare's declined? Well, he got knocked out in a minute and a half against Kevin Holland, but that doesn't really tell us a great deal. So for me, if Jacare were a big favourite in this fight, I completely agree with you. It would have been risky to take a bet on an older guy, not really knowing what condition he was going to show up in. But when you look at how bad Andre Munoz looked against Antonio Araujo, I think Jacare was a great bet at even odds. Good bets don't always win, bad bets don't always lose. But if you're not happy with a bet on Jacare, I don't think you've watched Andre Munoz versus Antonio Araujo, because if you had, you would definitely be betting Jacare at even money to the level that during the research session for this fight, everyone was on Jacare, because you'd have to be blind not to bet Jacare, seeing how bad looking how bad Munoz looked on the ground against Araujo, which is especially bad when you look at how bad Araujo looked against Deron Winn. It'll be interesting to see how he looks this weekend against Tom Breeze. But yeah, Jacare, just another one of those fights where things just didn't go our way. We took a calculated gamble and it just really wasn't our month. Then we've spoken a lot about how fighters have showed up and not performed consistently with how they've looked in the past, and that's really gone against us quite big in the month of May. And we saw that in the fight between Justin Tafa and Jared Vandeira. In the community, a lot of people were frustrated by Tafa's performance, but personally I wasn't. I feel Tafa performed exactly like he always does. Tafa came forward, loading up on that big left hand, looking to take Vandeira out. The only difference with this fight is that Jared Vandeira's striking looked significantly better than it has in the past. If you look at Vandeira's fights on the Contender Series, he looked very flat, very sloppy, very bad defensively. You know, if you look at the Vandeira we got against Taffa, he was light on his feet. You know, great head movement, great footwork, did a good job at frustrating Taffa and keeping him on the outside with those long kicks to the body. And Vandeira's jab looked great as well. This losing bet was very similar to the bet on Kevin Aguilar, where, you know, Tucker Lutz and Jared Vandeira had looked very low level on the Contender Series, and they just rose to the occasion and looked a lot better when they got their debut. It happens, it's cage fighting, we're not betting on robots. And like I always say, to reach the highest level of anything in life, you've got to be very good at learning from your mistakes. And, you know, you've got to be very good at learning from your mistakes and, you know, improving on weaknesses, right? It's no surprise to me when fighters show up and look a lot better than they have in the past, because they've been working their whole life to get to the UFC. So when they do get to the UFC, they want to stay there as long as possible and do as well as possible. So it doesn't surprise you when guys like Lutz and Vandeira show up and look a lot better than usual. But that is our biggest risk to bets, because we could do all the research in the world. You know, we can spend as much time researching these fights as we want, but at the end of the day, we can't control how a fighter is going to show up and fight on fight night, and ultimately, you know, that's why this is gambling. That's what is the biggest risk factor to making money in this game. So the other leg to that parlay was Ben Rothwell. Obviously, he beat the brakes off Chris Barnett, won easily. It was a very, very easy winner. Unfortunately, though, because Taffa lost, that was a 1 unit losing bet. So then we were going into the end of this month on a loss, and we needed to hit some big winners to claw back this month and end May in profit. And thankfully we did. We had a 2 unit bet on Court McGee at underdog odds. He came through for us in a very, very, very big way. Very dominant performance from McGee. And when you look at this fight, I think this is very, very comparable to the Andre Munoz versus Ronaldo Jacare Souza fight, right? Because I don't like to put too much emphasis on any individual bet. I like to place a lot of bets, get my money into strong positions, not sweat the outcome too much because of the variability in MMA, and just like to know that over the long term I'm going to win a hell of a lot more than I lose, which we do. Every single type of bet on the site is profitable. You know, it is what it is. We do very well betting on MMA. But the Court McGee bet to beat Claudio Silva was very, very similar to the bet on Jacare to beat Munoz. You know, people were saying Jacare was washed up. I didn't think there was any evidence of it, so let's fucking see. People were saying Court McGee was washed up. I didn't really see that much evidence of that, so let's fucking see. So we placed 2 bets in the even money odds range. We end up being profitable overall. You know, we make about 1.2 units of profit across the Jacare and McGee bets. But the thing with cage fighting is it's a game of inches, and results are not absolute. You know, if Court McGee would have got, you know, taken down and caught in a submission in round 1 and lost against Claudio Silva in like a minute and a half, there would be people coming out and saying Court McGee's washed up, he's done. It was a terrible bet to bet him against Claudio Silva. You know, Silva could quite easily have taken McGee down early, caught him in an armbar like Munoz caught Jacare in, and then people would have been like, Allsop's a fucking jackass for betting McGee. How could he bet McGee? It's so clear McGee's washed up. And I'm just here like, you guys just can't assess risk and reward if you're coming at me with that opinion. At the end of the day, you need to see evidence. You can present evidence that a fighter's washed up or they've declined and they're not going to be able to perform at a decent level against their opponent. Cool. But I need to see evidence. Most of the time when people talk like this is guesstimation and assumption. There's no evidence. I always say the footage is the only place that you will find truth. And the footage showed me that McGee was more than capable of beating a guy like Claudio Silva. And obviously he went out there, absolutely dominated. It was a nice solid win. Just the same as the footage showed me that Jacare performed like he did against Hermanson and Blakovic. And Munoz performed like he did against Araujo. Jacare was probably going to dominate him. It didn't go down like that because it's fucking gambling, it's fucking cage fighting. You know, this is a volatile sport where a lot can change in a short space of time. Unfortunately, we're not betting on robots. This is not Robot Wars. We can't see the fucking armor and how much fuel's in the robot and what weapons they've got. It's not fucking Robot Wars. We're betting on human beings. But over the long term, we're very, very profitable. So just want to make that clear. The McGee bet was very, very similar to the Jacare bet. 1-1, 1 lost. We went 1-1 for an overall profit. It is what it is. And then Carla Esparza came through for us in a huge way by dominating Yan Zhaonan on the ground, taking her down, beating her up on the ground for a nice 1.35 unit profit. So we had a lot of bad luck, I would say, in May. A lot of bets where they weren't rock solid positions. Like, I'm not going to say we got mega unlucky. Like, whenever you're betting on relatively low level guys like Justin Taffer or old fighters like Jacare, you know, one dimensional fighters like Aguilar, you're taking a risk, right? But at the end of the day, you know, it's like poker. You got to play 10 jack suited from time to time. You got to play ace 10 offsuit from time to time. You got to play these weaker hands. You got to mix it up. You got to see the flop with 5-7, you know, 5-7 suited. You know what I'm saying? You got to mix it up. And so, yes, it's risky to bet on fighters like Cachoeira, Aguilar, Jacare, Taffer, McGee. It is fucking risky. But we made more than we lost. And that's the main thing. And that's my philosophy. Consistently get your money in strong positions, and over the long term you'll make a profit. And just because a fighter like Cachoeira is very low level, or a fighter like Aguilar is very one-dimensional, doesn't mean you can't find a strong position. You just have to assess risk to reward correctly when you're looking at the odds. You know, it's like KB Bula. Everyone's making fun of KB Bula and calling him a bun. Everyone's making fun of KB Bula, and everyone's calling him a bum. And I'm sure people will love to make fun of the bet on KB Bula. But if Andreas Michaelides showed up looking like he did in ACB a couple of years ago, and completely gassed out of his mind and was too tired to even throw a punch after 5 minutes, people wouldn't be saying dick. It would be fucking crickets. And that is what is the most interesting part of what we do. MMA is all about research, putting your money in strong positions, and then on the night letting the cards fall where they may, and just hopefully you end up with more in the bank than you lose. And we do. Our profits are great. Okay, so let's take a look at tight bets now. So we've looked at loose bets. Let's get into tight bets. So tight bets, if we scroll down, we only had one tight bet in the whole month. We went for Court McGee to beat Claudio Silva, 2 units at 2.10. So that was a very, very nice profit for us. 2.2 units of profit on the tight bets to keep this profitability chart trending up very, very nicely. Okay, let's take a look at the lab bets next, and then we're almost done on this one. We'll be done very, very soon. Okay, so over-unders. Had a very good month on over-unders. Live betting were our best performing bets. Over-unders second best. We popped out 4 units of profit on our over-under bets. Around 4 units of profit, approximately 4 units of profit. Did very, very well on these over-unders. And we went 4-1 on over-unders in the month of May. So a very, very solid result. First of all, we took the over 2.5 rounds in the fight between Krzysztof Jotko and Sean Strickland. That was a nice, easy winner. Jotko was in a little bit of trouble in that second round, but one of the reasons why we bet on Jotko is we know he's tough as nails. He's got a decent chin, decent gas tank, and Strickland's more of a volume striker, doesn't really have that one-shot KO power. So easy little winner there. Then we took the over 1.5 rounds in the Ludwig Klein versus Mike Trizano fight at odds of 1.50. We hit a cheeky little 1.50 unit winner there. We knew Ludwig Klein was a very dangerous striker, but we knew Mike Trizano was very well trained under Tiger Schulman, was very, very good defensively, and he'd likely be able to hang in there with Klein, you know, and go the distance. He did, and we ended up winning a nice little bet on the over there. Next up, we hit the under 2.5 rounds on Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler for a 1.42 profit. Again, very, very easy winner. We knew that these guys are glass cannons. Both Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira are very, very dangerous offensively, but very, very bad defensively. We know Michael Chandler is very chinny. He tends to get rocked, dropped, wobbled, knocked out in all of his fights. And we know that Charles Oliveira tends to quit if you put him in a bad position. Chandler almost finished Oliveira in round 1, and then Oliveira obviously finished Chandler. It was an easy winner to set us up for a really big month on over-unders. We then took our only loss of the month on over-unders, which again, a little bit unlucky on this one. We went for the under 2.5 rounds in the Edmund Shabazian versus Jack Hermanson fight. Obviously, Hermanson put an absolute beating on Shabazian in the 3rd round. I thought that round 2 would have looked like round 3 because Hermansen usually starts very, very fast. And therefore, Shabazian, if Hermansen would have started really fast, Shabazian would have slowed down in round 2 instead of slowing down in round 3. And then that would open the door for Jack Hermansen to get a finish under 2.5 rounds. Unfortunately, Jack Hermansen got COVID. And as a result, because he had COVID just a few weeks ago, he wasn't as confident in his gas tank for this fight. So we saw Hermansen start much slower than usual. Just fought pretty safe in round 1, didn't really exert too much energy, and then really picked it up in the second and third round. So we were a little bit unlucky with that one, because if Hermansen would have fought like he usually does, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, I feel like I'm saying that a lot in this video, but if Hermansen would have fought like he usually does, he would have started the first like he fought in the second like he fought in the third, and very likely would have finished Shabazian. But that's the way it goes. And then we had a 2-unit bet on the under 2.5 rounds in the Ben Rothwell versus Chris Barnett fight. Absolute gift this was. I think people were misled on this one by the fact that Rothwell is a bit of a decisionator. But if you would have looked at Chris Barnett's past fights, you would have seen that the skill gap was so big here that it was going to be very, very difficult for Barnett to go the distance with a guy like Rothwell because of how dangerous Rothwell is and because of how low level Barnett was. And obviously that turned out to be an easy winner as well. So these over-under bets are turning into one of our best performing bets. Doing really, really well on them, and the win rate is just crazy high. If you go over our history, you can see that in 10 bets here, 1, 2, 3 losses in 10 there, 2 losses in 10 there, 1, 2, 3 losses in 10 there, 1, 2, 3, 4 losses in 10 there, and no losses in 3 there. So as you can see, a very, very high win rate on these over-unders, and of course we got a couple for this weekend as well. So over-unders are looking great, 4 units of profit. Hopefully we can keep that going in June and have another big month. And then the final type of bet that we've got to review, like with prop bets, I'm not going to go over all the even money bets because there's absolutely loads of them. I think there's like 20 to go through, but they were profitable. So made just over a unit of profit on even money bets. And yeah, even money bets been doing pretty well. They're also at the point now where they will very shortly be moving into the betting tips section of the website. Because remember, once these lab bets reach a sample size of 200 bets, if they're profitable, they get moved over. So very, very, very soon they'll be going on to the betting tips page. And yeah, man, they're going pretty well. Nice little profitability chart on these. Even money bets. It's a little bit more choppy, but we've been on a huge run in 2021, and hopefully we can keep it up. Through the rest of 2021 and continue to have a big year. So that's pretty much it. We were profitable on every single kind of bet in May, which is a home run for me. Profitable on live bets, loose bets, tight bets, prop bets, even money bets, over bets. Clean sweep, profitable across the board. Obviously, some types of bets are more profitable than others, but as long as things are profitable and trending up, that's all that matters to me. So shout out to you, for your support. Thank you for being in my community, and yeah, hopefully we can keep it going. Like I say, there's no reason why we can't, right? We show up every Monday, do our fight research, work hard throughout the week. On Saturday night, we go to war with the bookies in live betting. And, it's like Dale says. Dale, if you're watching, dude, Dale's been, in my live betting group for a while. Like Dale says, hard work is undefeated. And no one works harder than us. Every single week, we come out, put the work in, put an enormous amount of time into researching these fights, and it pays off. It really pays off. The profitability charts show that it pays off. And, it's not like we're going to not work hard anymore. We're going to keep working hard. It's not like my work rate is going to drop. I'm going to keep turning up every week. I'm going to keep, putting as much time as I need to put in to keep up this level of profitability. So for me, fuck variance. There's no reason why these profits can't still keep going and going and going forever, because my work rate isn't going to change. If anything, I'll be working harder. to get the helicopters, to get the fucking castles with the sentry towers and the attack dogs. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, thank you for watching, everyone. Hard work's undefeated, and June is going to be massive for us. You know, who knows, man? We may not make a profit, like we've seen with some of the losing bets this month. We can't control how fighters show up on fight night, right? This ain't fucking Robot Wars. Hate to break it to you, it ain't fucking Robot Wars. We're betting on human beings. But we're going to put the same amount of work in June that we put in May, and hopefully that leads to a profit. So thank you very much for watching. Nice one, guys. Take care. Love you all. And hope you punch the bookies in the dick this weekend. Hopefully we can make another big profit this weekend. I'll be back with another performance review video soon. Nice one, guys. Take care. Bye.